So you're a dinosaur, and you're a T-Rex, and you're the top of the food chain during the time of dinosaurs. And you're just having a fantastic day. You're out, you're eating, you're killing these smaller, weaker dinosaurs, and you just feel like you're on top of the world, and nothing can beat you up. And you get to a smaller dinosaur's birthday party, and everyone's singing, "If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands."
Oh, man. I can't.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
I don't have hands.
Man.
If you're
I have
happy
wings.
and you...
It's like when I tried folding pillowcases.
I love you.
Hey everybody, I'm Dane Holland, and I need some space.
I'm Austin Shazam Pfeiffer, and we call this Fanon fodder.
I'm Marcus, the orphaned mutant, known as I'm Electric Man.
I'm Austin Tiny Zent, and welcome to the family.
Aw, it's a reunion here on Nerd It Through the Grapevine, the podcast where four best friends gather weekly to talk about our favorite parts of past, present, and future nerd culture.
And oftentimes you find yourself in situations where you don't know whether or not what you're remembering from that past is going to be real or not. And this is a problem because you've got a lot of older source materials that get a lot of stuff spun around them that is not oftentimes what the main storyline is going to be. And that's kind of where my brain has went this past couple weeks, getting into writing a screenplay basically based on an old movie that I was a really, really big fan of. And I am in a large group of people that do this same thing. And they write this stuff that is it's called headcanon. It's what most people know it as, like the headcanon, like the stuff that makes the most sense that was never explicitly said. But it's also referred to as Fanon. Fanon, Fanon.
Fan canon.
Fan canon. Now, fan canon itself can stretch tons of different places, and to the point to where even like people from Disney and Marvel will like comment back on what this strong following of Fanon is. Like in the movie, I'm going to pull out some Disney movies here. I hope people have seen them in this
Why are you
room.
gesturing at me?
Well, I'm meaning in overarching.
It's just where his hand
Your
ended
hand
up.
is still pointing at
It's where
me.
he went from a left to right motion.
Yes,
But it rested in my direction.
Well, you're the bucket that the paint brush gets to rest in here when I'm paintbrushing this entire room with my hand, swiping, and it lands on you. In the Disney movie Frozen, it was a very heavy fan theory based off of the look and the traveling destination and the death of the parents in the movie Frozen, that they actually were Tarzan's parents. It was a very heavily held belief that they survived their shipwreck, they made it to land, and they ended up, having a baby at sea because they were out at sea for so long. I mean, and this stuff like stretched on for forever with people trying to spread this rumor like this is what makes sense, this is what makes sense, this is what makes sense, till finally the director of that movie spoke out about it. And bless their heart, as we say here in the South, bless their heart, they did it so badly because they sarcastically implied, "Oh yeah, that's real." Yeah.
You can't say that.
Yeah.
You can't be the creator and say that.
Yeah. So the creator sarcastically responded with, "Oh yeah, that's totally real. Yeah. Elsa and Anna's parents are totally Tarzan's parents." And everybody lost their minds because he confirmed it to them, even though he was saying it sarcastically. And they call that in Fanon word of God.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
And word of God means even though it is not written or scripted or put into the work, if the creator of said work vocalizes it, then it is put into word of God canon.
Yeah.
So even though you might not have seen it, this is what's happened. So since they responded sarcastically and didn't deny it,
Then it's word of God.
then it's word of God. So Tarzan is the younger brother to Elsa and Anna.
And no takesy backsies either.
No take backsies on
no.
that. I mean, and another one from that too is like there's a very like they all fans of these movies go a little crazy because they don't want Elsa to be the only one with powers. Just because they feel like it would be so much cooler if there were other people with powers, you know. As it is, you know, we love superhero movies. You know, let's have more than one set of powers going on here. Well, they're trying to say like Anna, her sister, has super strength because like there's one point that she like, you know, it looks like she hits somebody with an entire sled. Like swings the sled into them and hits them. Like she kicks Olaf so hard in his head that it goes into like, you know, 40 feet into the air. She's jumping from balcony like ledges and just bouncing here and there.
So cartoon physics.
Yes, cartoon physics.
They forget.
Yes.
And he is
Cartoon.
made of snow as well.
But, you know, it's just kind of insane to think that that kind of stuff can have influence on the actual canon. People can write stories or people can talk about stuff so much with other fans and spread the actual ideas, and I'm using quotations there, actual ideas, that it becomes something of an entirely different form, which is, this is very on brand for people like me. It's called the Ascended Fanon. So the Ascended Fanon is whenever the Fanon is promoted to canonicity.
Okay.
So it's when the ideas and the followings of the people that are using the Fanon as their source for, you know, understanding what happened at this point in the story is confirmed later on. So much like all the stuff we got in Obi-Wan, that was kind of, and that's something that they use as well to fill in spots where we have, what did you call it? Continuity porn? Mm-hmm. The continuity porn is actually Ascended fandom.
And I didn't coin that term, by the way.
Oh, well, that's fine. That's the first time I'd ever heard it, so you made it up.
Yeah. Our
in our Fanon.
Yeah, you
Damn
made
it.
that up.
What do you think we have when every time we ring the cowbell? I mean, that's our Fanon.
Right.
And
But we're Word of God.
Yeah, we are.
We are the creators of this content.
Exactly.
So we are.
Right.
Damn, we've got too much power. Ask the two celebrities we've killed with our words.
We can't ask them anything. They're
4.
gone.
Well, we could always have a seance.
I am a certified exorcist, so we can do this
See?
safely.
We can do whatever we want.
Now, say later on they have other works that come out that reveal parts of what the fans have said, you know, stuff that's going to be filling in story gaps that the fans had already filled in themselves and just putting it into the movie. That's a later on thing. That's called a I Knew It.
Say that one more time.
It's called a I Knew It.
But what is an I Knew It? I missed that.
Basically just fans pointing out blank spots.
And then them confirming it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's great for a creator because they're like, wow, that's a better idea than I had in mind
Right.
for that.
Thank you.
I was just leaving it blank just because I didn't care
And
enough.
we don't even have to pay them.
Yeah, exactly.
And those little bits of continuity porn that we had in Obi-Wan, I think that they are under a part of this called Schrodinger's gun.
Okay.
And Schrodinger's gun is when you keep the plot on the rails. Basically, it's like they're trying to do their best to just barrel through what's happening, and you know, are they going to have these little spots to where this doesn't make sense? Schrodinger's gun.
But the plot.
But
so just, okay, do this and then boom, and then nobody will think about it, and then the plot can continue.
Exactly. Hey, let's mention something that would have had continuity with the original trilogy, so like I can distract them from this really dank spot here.
Right.
Like this really stanky spot in the show. Let's make sure that I distract them real quick with this. Dangle, 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 dangle.
Nothing gets by nerds though. Like none of this. Like you cannot.
Because we're going to rewatch it and analyze it and just spend way too much time on something that really doesn't matter in the grand scope of things, but it matters to us.
Yeah.
And funny enough, with Obi-Wan, you say somebody made a 2.5-hour fan edit of Obi-Wan, and it's like catching on. Like people, like millions of people have downloaded it and viewed it now. And I actually downloaded it. I haven't watched it yet, but I'd really like to because, you know, possibly that could be my headcanon or my fanon. Right. You know?
And there is a polar opposite to the Ascended fandom, and that is going to be called being jossed.
Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon.
Yes.
Oh wait, it's actually they turned it into a verb.
Yes, Joss Whedon has become Jost because of how long of a stretch that Buffy the Vampire Slayer had. So many of the fans had such a dedicated following to it that they would make up their own, theories as to what happened to this character and where did they go and what are they doing. And Joss Whedon was notorious for coming out and being like, "You're wrong. You're all wrong. You're all stupid." Watch my show anyway, though. I appreciate it. But it was very... I don't know. I don't like Joss Whedon too much after what he did to the Justice League. So, I mean, that's just my own personal opinion. I can't really...
But, I mean, it's Word of God, though. So, he has the right to say, no, that's actually not what happened.
He does.
Oh, yeah.
He does.
And it's up to the fandom to be like, okay, well, we don't like you or your work anymore.
But to say, maybe not with the Justice League, but with something of his own creation,
Because
like Buffy. Or, well, I don't know if Buffy was his own creation. Anyway, go ahead.
But
think he did.
Zack Snyder's Justice League was the Justice League before Joss Whedon took over the directorial spot and then wiped everything that Zack Snyder was doing out and made his own Justice League. So Joss Whedon jossed the actual director of the Justice League. So that was just... There's one more little spot, too, that's neat because a lot of times authors or creators don't like to give you exact answers to stuff because they want to just keep you guessing. They want to keep that brain firing, and they actually like the ideas that fans are coming up with, that they're so into the story that they just make up their own lives in here, and they call it the shrug of God. Because you get, well, I could really go either way with a big shit-eating grin on their face.
That's not a no. That's all we see is that's not a no. So
it's not a no, it's not a yes, it's the shrug of God.
Which, depending on, like, as a creator, if you create something that you have decided it has the beginning and the end, and you have no plans to fill this stuff out, like you're done with the work, you've moved on, which isn't really a thing anymore because now it's just how can we spread this as thin as humanly possible. But that those works of art still exist. I feel like the shrug is like, it's fine, like, for them, because it's like I already gave you everything that there is to give. What you get out of it now is totally up to you. Like, not everyone is going to believe this thing that the fans have come up with. So, whatever. If it makes your enjoyment better of my product, by all means, sure. And I think that's a cool way of going about a creation like that. And it's also able to show that you're not babying that thing. It's now, that's more of a case of this is yours now. Like, this is the fandom's thing now that I've created for you. I didn't create it for myself or for money, completely. It's also for the fans. Yeah. So I think that's kind of neat when they do that. But then you've got the nerds that just only want what's real and what's true. And that's the thing about fiction is none of it's true until the shrug of God or getting jossed or whatever.
Well, me and you actually had a conversation off air not too long ago about how canon, like especially with something as big as Star Wars. I mean, it's just as big as Thor and Loki were to the people a long time ago that wrote about them and taught. Well, it was more oral tradition. But I mean, with something as big as Star Wars, it is a modern mythology. What's canon now does not necessarily mean that that's what's going to be canon 40 years from now. Head canon is the way to go, kind of.
And that brings me to the point in it that is called better than canon.
Yes.
Better than canon is when you've got a group of nerds that get together and say, you know what? I don't care what the creator says. This is horse shit.
Yes.
And they are all in agreement and they follow their fandom more closely than they do the actual story anymore.
Absolutely.
Because they think that it's garbage. It could have been done so much better, and this is how it could have been better.
Absolutely.
And it's another one of those grand scheme of things situations because who cares? Like, if a fan enjoys something more because they've made something up about it, if they make up their own fiction about the fiction, it's fine. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make the product any worse unless the creator themselves says, like, yeah, this terrible idea is right. But it doesn't matter.
Then we go to that last trope that you just mentioned.
Exactly. Yeah. Because then we can go, screw you. Like, I don't care. This is better this way.
Like if you try to tell me that season 8 of Game of Thrones is canon, I'm going to be like, no,
it was a bad dream.
Yeah, and actually, I'll go even further than that.
Yeah,
we are still on season 4.
Yeah.
I mean, George R.R. Martin recently came out and just completely said that the ending of the series, assuming he finishes it, is not going to be what was on the television.
Yeah, he said that
It'll be
for a
totally
while.
different. So
And it's kind of obvious if you've read the books, but he's actually someone who's very against fan fiction, at least in his own words. When he was asked the question on some panel, like he seemed to almost not understand what was being asked of him, but he kind of said like he does not like fan fiction. Like he's like, these are my characters and I get to decide what happens to them.
If they were yours and only yours, then you would not publish it for other people to consume. Like you know what I mean? Like,
but he like you mentioned, he kind of babies it,
right?
He seems to, and he's even said that if he were to pass, that he does not want anyone to finish his book.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's
so we were going to have to make up our own Fanon,
right?
For the end, I mean, if we can get wins, I don't care to make up my own ending. That's fine. I just want wins.
Yeah,
and I think that the later on episodes of the HBO series are kind of like what I've done with Tenacious D and The Pick of Destiny, just because honestly, it could be utter crap to most people, but some people might enjoy it.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a snippet of Fanon that I have written. Just a snippet of it. I can't read the whole damn thing. I wouldn't even do it in 2 episodes. But the part that we're getting to here in the story also comes with an audio clip, because what I've done is I used to have a metal band. We wrote this really cool post-apocalyptic song. I wanted to fit it in with the story here, and it's all kind of made its own, I don't know, I guess it's lore. As lightning races towards Kyle, it scorches a path to him. JB jumps in front of it to reflect off of its pit guard, as he did in the past. Mid-jump, his old guitar strap snaps, leaving his chest wide open to the full contact of the demonic hit. So JB just gets hit with lightning.
And this is JB from Tenacious D,
Yes,
correct?
Jack Black and Kyle Gass. We see JB lying on the ground. His followers gathered around all scream, mourning the dramatic hit they've witnessed. He's a cult leader, and we're in the middle of his cult camp. Kyle holding JB's lifeless body. There's no way. This can't be the end. The prophecy was supposed to be complete once the twin flames were activated and the first time's hourglass shifted. Jables, wake up, bro! We can't do this without you. Everything's wrong. And this is where the song comes into play. This grand tale is a gathering of the followers of rock, a calling to the followers of rock, the true believers. Guys, there's only one song that can save us. Do you remember Age of Man? We have the music down, but you never finished the lyrics. Just go into the outro to the solo. I think I know what to do. Then my character engages the crowd. True believers, I need your aid. The power of rock that lives inside of you is our last hope. Share your power with me. Yeah!
this is very Tenacious D.
It is my favorite. I spent... And the crowd sharks. Excuse me.
Sharks?
Crowd sharks.
Yes!
Hey,
That's my headcanon. Yes, crowd sharks.
Honestly,
good
if
call.
it's,
Oh, God, I don't care.
He plays the brown note.
if it's
the crowd
anything like me
sharks.
today, then it's probably the truth. The crowd starts chanting with their hands raised. Rock, 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 rock. Gathering sparks start to fly, like fireflies dancing towards the outstretched hand of Brian. TA! Hit the solo section outro! And that's where it proceeds to this. Motioning to the followers.
I just sharded.
All the sparks are gathering. Now let's pause for a second.
Right when you're fixing to do the build-up.
Because this is when shit gets intense.
It already did for me.
It did.
Oh,
I just sharded. I mean, that's how into it I was.
oh, that's not what really happened. That was just a slip of the tongue, and I should probably smack my mouth for it.
It's Fanon, baby.
Yep.
It's Fanon
Yeah,
inside
Daddy.
of Fanon.
That's called a Freudian slip.
A Freudian slip about pooping?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't. Well, you can yuck that yum if you want
Look,
to.
I
I feel
mean,
like that's
Freud can
pretty
make
yucky.
anything pretty sexual, okay?
So as the beat of the breakdown hammers along and Brian's scream reaches to the heavens, the amplified rock power from the followers and TA combine to punch a hole in the sky. A single beam of brilliant light cuts through the hole to hit JB directly in the face. Spreading over his body, the beat drops. JB's eyes open, and he is empowered by the rock as it jolts him back to life. And he has one response. Yeah! And with that single yeah, JB is now back to life. And they complete the final chorus together. Overpowering the devil and taking down Satan once again.
So that's your Fanon.
That's my Fanon. That's my Fanon. I created my own little story just because I hate that Tenacious D only got that one movie. Because, I mean, a lot of people that are really into, I guess, Tenacious D and the goofiness, like they enjoy that movie and they've watched it way too many times to carry on that story into something more.
It definitely deserves a sequel.
Absolutely, it does.
It's already been written, apparently,
Yep.
by this man here.
I have written one.
If you like Tenacious D fan fiction, you will love Sonic the Hedgehog fan fiction. It's
Sounds amazing.
if you are above the age of 18 years old and you would like to Google Sonic the Hedgehog fan fiction, please do so now. But I did not tell you to do that. What I did tell you to do is watch the Orville. It used to be on Fox, and now it's on Hulu, and there are 3 seasons of it, and the 3rd season's not even done yet. But you may have heard of the Orville, but never watched it before. For whatever reason, but it actually took me a long time to actually watch it myself. But once I finally did, it was not what I expected whatsoever, because the creator is Seth McFarlane and it stars Seth McFarlane. And when you see Seth MacFarlane, you see Family Guy, you see, fart jokes and just stupid humor and things like that, to where pretty much everything else he's made has been that same kind of, like, what was the other live action movie that he wrote? 1,000 Ways to Die in the West? Or
A million ways to die in the
That's
West.
too many ways. Yeah, so even that, like, little live action, but I think it was filled with ridiculous humor.
Oh, absolutely. Please don't kill us on sex night.
There, something like this. But the Orville, when I first turned it on, I was expecting A Million Ways to Die in the West in space. And that's not at all what it is whatsoever. There is humor in it, and you can definitely see the Seth MacFarlane in it, but it's also a more mature humor of Seth MacFarlane. It's not the trying to reach as many people in all age groups as you possibly can. It's actually good. And the show, if you love Star Trek, or even like Star Trek, or like the idea of Star Trek, the Orville is exactly for you, because it's an homage to Star Trek. It is almost Fanon in the Star Trek universe, basically. It's almost like an Elseworlds Star Trek.
And that's all Seth MacFarlane's really made his entire everything off of, is his ability to draw into his own Fanon. He takes characters, he takes people, he takes shows, he combines them into super stupid different scenarios all throughout Family Guy. In A Million Ways to Die in the West, he actually did his own Fanon for Back to the Future, because Doc Brown and the Time Machine were in the barn in the town. And Christopher Lloyd was even there, and he's like, "Oh, don't pay any attention to what's in there." It was really cool. So to see this show that you guys have been watching, and to actually pay attention to it, like, it didn't take me but like 10, 15 minutes into watching it to realize, like, whoa, he's being serious with this. Like, there's a little bit of humor that goes on with it, but it's a lot drier than what it normally is. It's not as like, honk a clown on the nose and see its ass set on fire kind of thing.
I mean, I've seen roughly the first season, and as I discussed on a previous episode, I am a big Star Trek fan, and my initial impression was that, yeah, it had some, humorous points, but it seemed like a love story to Star Trek.
Yeah.
Because, like, some of the races are very similar with his own little twist. Even the ship looks a lot like the Enterprise. and it was different and it was a little weird, but I thoroughly enjoyed the episodes that I did watch.
Yeah, and it's like it's what happens when a famous rich nerd with power and nostalgia gets a hold of being able to produce something like this, because he wrote the whole thing, like, and ever since he was a kid loves Star Trek, so his whole life he's been wanting to make something like this. And it's crazy that the way he got famous was nothing to do with anything like this. I mean, there are even full Star Wars episodes of Family Guy, like set in his own little Family Guy Star Wars universe, which is like his own Star Wars fan fiction. But it's almost like he went through a lot of shit that maybe he didn't even enjoy making to get to this thing that is pure love that he has for it. So much so that he was like, no one else will play the main character. I have to play the main character in this because I have to make sure it's mine, because that's how much he loves it.
And, going back to him as a little boy, like, I've always wanted to be like the captain of the Enterprise.
Right. Why would you hire somebody else to do it?
Yeah.
Like, you can do it. You've acted. Yeah. Like, why not? But the show started in 2017, and like I said earlier, it had 2 seasons with Fox, and then Hulu. It's now a Hulu original, and it was the highest rated Thursday show, as well as Fox's most viewed debut drama since 2015 on Fox. So I didn't even realize how many people were watching the show, and obviously a lot of people were if Hulu picked it up, and Hulu surely didn't pick it up for this season just to end it there. Like, I think there are 3 more episodes left in the 3rd season, but so I'm really looking forward to more. But the ship that they're on, the Orville, it's an exploration ship. So their job is to explore the galaxy, like multiple galaxies, to go everywhere, to discover new peoples, new planets, new star systems, all kinds of stuff. So it's like it's unlimited on what they can do. They're not limited to certain things within their, what is it called? The Planetary Union is what they're a part of. So it's very militaristic in certain ways with like rankings and things. And that's something that the show does really well too, is they don't stray too far away from the reality of how certain things would be handled in a militaristic situation. Like, people are reprimanded for stuff. Like, there's a very just heartbreaking thing that happens with one of the main characters and their best friend, and it involves time travel trope and a love story, and it's just, it's so much heartbreak, and it has to happen because it's these rules that they must follow. And there's so many different versions of this kind of story to where they'll break all those rules, because, love conquers all. My friendship is worth more than the time laws that our planetary alliance has made. But in this show, they're like, no, like, this is smaller scale than what we're trying to protect is, which is the time, like, the whole time trope, the timeline. Got to protect the timeline.
Right.
But that happens a little further on the series. But the point still stands, because there are many times throughout the show where even there are things, like very heartfelt things, again, that the right decision can't be made, and it isn't. Sometimes they don't make the best decision because they can't do it. Like, he keeps the show in this almost sense of reality in this completely fictitious sci-fi setting, and it makes it feel more real to you as you're watching it, which is just nice, because there's certain things that happen that I'm like, normally this would go this way, but I don't know how this is going to go, because they may just say, sorry, like, there's nothing we can do, and that's it. Yeah. And it's really cool. There's a character in the show named Isaac, and he is an AI robotic character. And there's a large story arc that involves him, involving between the 2nd and 3rd season. And they don't do the whole, like, oh, he grows a heart, emotion happens within this AI, and he makes an emotional decision. Like, no, it's all calculated ones and zeros, like thought processes, to where this character works their way through things. It's not this whole, oh, the robot grew a heart situation, which is a trope in many things.
Yeah.
To where it doesn't make any sense.
Oh, he cried.
Exactly. Yeah, the robot cried.
Aww.
Like, that doesn't happen with this character. He's very straightforward with stuff, but they still find a way to make it emotional and to make him seem like he has emotions. But when they're sitting there writing this character, they're going, how can we do this in a calculated manner that if you were to type this like equation of a love story between him and another character. If you were to type this equation up, what would be the answer to it? And that's how they come up with it. They don't stray too far away from the reality they've made for their own fictitious characters. And that
there's a name for that.
Yeah,
I just can't think of it.
Whatever the name
like
is,
internal. It's like some consistency. Like
okay,
like the story has to have its internal logic,
right?
Kind of.
And that's something that when you think Seth MacFarlane, that's probably the last thing before watching the show that you think he would do. Like, of course, he just whatever's funnier. I don't know, man. Like, it doesn't matter. But in this, like everything, it almost makes sense while you're watching it, and like he drives you to want to cry for these characters and cheer for the characters, and like to think that the Family Guy man made a Star Trek and it makes me feel these things is ridiculous. And I love it. I love how unexpected it is, because it was unexpected from the beginning. Yeah. Like right off the bat, I'm thrown off. So for the rest of the show, it surprises me as it goes on. But you get to the point where, I mean, you trust him pretty quickly. I mean, you saw the first season. I mean, you saw the love story to Star Trek that it is.
Yeah.
And you all of a sudden trust him. Like I don't,
because I went in expecting cock slapping humor,
right?
And like you said, there was some hilarity sprinkled in, but it was very serious, which was almost like a breath of fresh air coming from him.
Absolutely,
because that's what we're so used to is like Stewie and his wanting to kill his mom and all the other things that falls under the Stewie umbrella, and his weird, almost gay relationship with Brian, and he's a baby, and then you get to this.
Don't forget Rupert.
It's just straight up sci-fi with some humor sprinkled in. Yep. It was actually pretty amazing, considering the source and what you're used to seeing from him.
And go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I would imagine a lot of Star Trek fans are watching this instead of the actual Star Treks that they're making now, because from what I hear, most Star Trek fans are not really all that cool with the new Star Treks that they've been putting out.
Picard
and a lot of them I've heard say, actually Steven Erikson, he wrote some Star Trek spoofs, much like the Orville novels. I forget what they're called. I'll have to look that up. But he says, like just what you mentioned earlier with the whole militaristic kind of hierarchy, and like in these new shows, like they're just kind of like they're not paying attention to that. Like the strong lead is like, no, I'm not going to deal with this, and like just going again in a militaristic setting like that just wouldn't fly.
Right.
And so some of the internal consistency or the internal logic of the Star Trek universe is just kind of being ignored now in these new shows. So I would imagine a lot of Star Trek fans don't really like the new Star Treks, and maybe they're going over to the Orville because it's a much more true to the source material.
And that's something that I'm not used to in sci-fi series, is seeing somebody adhere to the code of the Federation. Like the Federation is what they've got in, Star Trek. You've got the Galactic Alliance, or what is it?
The Planetary Union.
Planetary Union. Okay, I was completely wrong.
No, but it means the same thing.
But pretty much, this one episode specifically, they had to make a decision. They had to make a decision that went against an entire culture's belief in doing something. And they would have done this for the betterment of this one individual that had now escaped that culture and those people. They wanted to fix the problem. They were forbidden to do so, and they did not do so because of orders from the
Planetary
Union.
Because it would break their code of conduct.
And turns out this decision that was made was actually carried out by the AI.
Right.
Isaac.
They find ways around but while they still
loophole.
Yes, and they're like, the rules are there, but they're like, this is the only way around it that we can do.
And Isaac wasn't asked by anybody to do so.
Right.
Isaac just said, this is the logical decision. We're going to do this.
Yeah.
And by doing so, they bypassed what the Federation had said. They bypassed that, and they went directly into, what the outcome of that is. And they're getting their asses reamed by their commanding officer, and the commanding officer's like losing their mind on them and everything else like that. But then they said, well, it turns out that that's actually strengthened their front because they hate the artificial intelligence race already. So now they're going to want to fight them even harder for breaking this carnal rule.
Right.
And
Carnal rule. Oh. Oh.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on with it, and the planetary union setting is it is Earth. I mean, Earth is there. Earth is a part of the story. It's just way like I don't know 400 years into the future or something.
Yeah,
and like money's not even a thing anymore. They're like money's a thing of the past. They thought it was ridiculous to begin with, and a lot of the issues they deal with are humanitarian issues. But it isn't like a preachy way. It's like because they're using all these other different races and they're finding ways to introduce these. Like in our human society, hot button topics, and they're like, this is a scale on like this is a galactic scale situation, and when you look at it that way, they're like, this is obviously the best decision, and they go through like most episodes tackle some kind of thing that is some kind of like humanitarian kind of issue, and the way they go through it all is just brilliant with as many characters that they introduce. Another thing about it, even beyond plot, because plot just hands down one of my favorite sci-fis that I've seen. It is still campy, kind of like Star Trek.
Sure.
It's got some campiness to it, but that's a part of the love story for Star Trek. You have to have the campiness to it. If you don't...
It was almost like a mixture of TNG and the original series kind of rolled together.
The Next Generation, for those who haven't watched Star Trek.
Yes, The Next Generation. So if you're a fan of those two renditions of Star Trek in particular, you will absolutely love the Orville.
Another thing with it, ship designs are phenomenal. There is not a single ship that I've seen in that show that I not like the design of it. They are all so cool. It's like a kid grew up to get to design spaceships for a sci-fi show because that's exactly what happened. And they all look incredible. And they have a full orchestra that makes the music for every episode. Like they have soundtracks for each season that come out because this 50-something piece orchestra that makes all the music for it. Like they've said they put as much time and effort into the music for the show as they do the graphics.
Well, and Seth MacFarlane's always been known to be he cares a lot about music. I mean, he's always done his show tunes, like Family Guy's loaded with the show tunes.
Yeah.
The
I didn't think of that.
The cavalcade of cartoon comedy.
Yeah, he's a very musical person as well.
And it shows in this because the score is incredible, and then the graphics are really good. Like some space scenes, you're watching these space fights, and you're like, I haven't seen these this good in movies before. Like how much money are they throwing at this thing? And I think Seth just has that much pull with it, and I think there's so much love for the show that I didn't even realize was there because I don't speak to a lot of people that have seen the show.
Yeah,
and I'm so glad that so many people are enjoying it because it is phenomenal. And there's not a lot of sci-fi I feel right now, like quality sci-fi that I've come across.
Raised by Wolves, but they canceled it.
Yeah. HB, oh no, they've done it again.
Maybe somebody will save it. I wonder, do they have their own red shirts? Like, is that kind of a trope still in
Honestly,
Orville?
they kind of break that trope.
Okay, cool.
Because red shirts are, like, there are red shirts in the show, but very important characters have the red shirts.
Oh,
so
nice,
it's just like
nice.
you see the red shirts and you're like, oh no, are they going no. And a lot of times they'll even have like the character, like the actor you've never seen before, of a character you've never seen, and they're going on this dangerous situation on a new planet. You're like, oh, they're gonna die, and they don't. Like there's someone there because there needs to be that person in that position on the ship. That they're not a main character, but they need that person there. So they're like, well, we're not going to just make one of our main characters all of a sudden know this position on the ship, or we're going to have this new person. And it breaks a lot of tropes, it follows a lot of tropes, and it does a really good job at both.
Yeah, that's cool.
So the Orville, if you get a chance and you have Hulu, watch it. If you're out on the seas on your ship with an eye patch and a skull on your flag, find it that way too. I don't care. Just watch the show.
Also go to change.org and sign the petition to save Raised by Wolves.
Yes.
But kind of in the same kind of vein, kind of this love letter to an established IP, that's kind of what The Boys is. And y'all all know that I love The Boys. I think all y'all like The Boys too.
Yes.
That's none of my damn business.
Yeah.
The Boys on Amazon, the kind of superhero subversion genre that they're kind of going for. Just finished their third season. I thought it was really good, even though they're subverting the genre. I mean, the original comic, you can't subvert something unless you already are very familiar with it.
Right.
And so really the whole point is just to kind of say like, okay, well, what if superheroes were actually real? what if just normal people had godlike powers?
Wait, are you saying we don't?
We do here on the show.
I have great night
outside of
hearing,
this.
and dogs understand it when I point.
That inspires a topic idea for me, actually.
Ooh.
Well, you're welcome then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Remind me about that.
Okay.
But anyway, so The Boys season 3 was awesome. I liked it a lot. You know, we all know that Homelander's kind of like a mix between, I mean, he's got a little bit of Captain America in there, but he's kind of Superman. He's like a subversion of Superman.
Yeah.
This new season, they introduce a character, Soldier Boy, who
That's
is
definitely Captain
That's
America's.
definitely Captain America. And I really like how they subverted that. I mean, I just thought Soldier Boy was a really cool character. I mean, obviously he's a piece of garbage, but it was just cool, you know? But so apparently we're going to get a Boys spinoff. We've actually already got one.
The girls?
Yeah, I wish. So there's The Boys Presents Diabolical, and it's like this animated kind of anthology. So there's like, I think there's maybe 7 or 8 episodes, and they're all kind of just different little stories.
Very cool.
Set in that universe. And it is cool, and there's funny stuff. It's, I don't know, it was really interesting. But we're going to get a live action spinoff called, I think it's called The Boys Varsity. And so it's going to take place, it's going to be like, I think the producers have said they want to accurately represent college life in modern times. But, you know, there's going to be superheroes, and it's going to take place in the same universe as Vought and the Compound V and all this stuff. And so it just kind of got me looking towards the comic books and looking for what kind of stuff they're going to draw from. And apparently they're going to be using the G-Men, which are kind of these satirical spoof parody of the X-Men, one of my favorite superhero teams. And as we all know, the X-Men has been one of the most successful comics ever, and has spawned all these different teams like X-Force and
Alpha Flight.
That's
I don't know.
Canadian. That's
I
Canadian.
think
They
that's
were
Canadian.
Canadian.
I'm pretty sure.
X-Factor,
I mean,
you know, all
it
these,
rests in my heart.
so many different groups of X-Men, right? And so, much like that, the G-Men are just a group of superheroes founded by John Godolkin, who is kind of this kind of twisted, evil version of Professor X, except for he himself, I don't think, has any powers. He just goes around and literally abducts children, gives them Compound V, and then turns them into his own superheroes, and kind of has this connection, or kind of has this agreement with Vought to kind of make money that way, you know, because these are one of the most money-making superhero teams just below the 7, which are kind of the Justice League, right?
Yeah.
So Vought supplies this Professor X, like evil Professor X, like guy with the Compound V, and he uses it to create these heroes.
I think he might have actually stole it. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's kind
That's
of
interesting.
It's kind of a maybe a reluctant agreement almost.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
in Diabolical, it's kind of alluded to that they kind of just play them off of each other, because there's a couple of these G-men that show up in Diabolical.
Is it like an anti-hero type situation with this guy? Like he's
No, he's just straight evil.
just straight evil. Okay.
Yeah. So, but I think really what it is like he gets his hands on some Compound V. He makes his own group of superheroes, and he's like, "Hey, Vought, what you gonna do, y'all?" Because they kind of have the monopoly on the superhero creation and exploitation, and so he kind of works out an agreement to make money off of his captured people. And yeah, I'm not doing a great job of explaining, but I think y'all get it.
No, it's like, it sounds like real life if superheroes were real life.
Right.
It's like,
He
how
stole
do we
their-
make money from this?
He stole their product
Yeah.
and said, "Hey, what are you going to do? Pay
Right.
me, pay me." But in Diabolical, it's more like kind of like we see in The Boys, where they're like, "Oh, we all have a team up coming up." Like they plan all these big events and outings of their superheroes because they have to control the airwaves. You know, they have to control the story. They have to control the narrative.
There's one big outing they don't control that involves a lot of superheroes, though, that they explored in the 3rd season as well.
Oh yeah,
Founded by Soldier Boy, not only America's ass, but America's porn star, the
Herogasm.
the creator of Herogasm, where all of the heroes.
We'll get to that.
Oh, my
There was actually some G-men involved in that Herogasm that we saw on screen.
Oh.
But a lot of these that have been mentioned in The Boys are kind of different versions than they are in the comics. So basically, the G-Men, just like the X-Men, have all their spin-offs. They've got G-Force, G-Style, G-Coast, G-West, G-Wiz, and like even pre-Wiz. So it's like literally preschoolers, a preschool superhero team.
Oh my god.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So Groundhawk is like one of the founding members of G-Men, and he's like your Wolverine spoof. So he even like his costume looks a lot like Wolverine. He's got the superhero or superhuman strength and all this, but he's got giant hammers for hands, and so he doesn't have fingers, and so he can't pick things up. All he can do is just smash things.
He was in Diabolical.
Yeah, he was in that episode, and actually Nubia
Yeah.
is another
yeah.
G man or G woman, whatever.
G person.
G person. So yeah, Groundhawk is like this kind of a grim representation of what Wolverine would be like if he kind of just lost all control and just became a terrible, terrible person, much like all of them. 5-0 is another one, and he's kind of very cop related, as his name suggests, but he's kind of like the Cyclops of the group. He's got these special glasses that have these energy beams. That, can melt people. But only money drives him. He's only driven by money. He doesn't care anything about justice. It's all about the dollar bills. And he's like super loyal to Godalkin, the Professor X, basically Professor G,
Yeah.
Critter is one of my favorites. He's covered in hair. So
Beast.
give me say.
Sasquatch.
He's the tallest superhero alive. He wears like this Elizabethan collar, like when a dog gets surgery done, he wears one of those, and he wears boxing gloves on his hands so he doesn't scratch himself. And he basically just hates everyone, even his own teammates. He's extremely reckless and often endangers his fellow teammates. And he's like super like racist and homophobic, which is like
That's a theme in the show, too. For all
absolutely.
these terrible characters.
Exactly.
They're like,
These people are not heroes.
no.
Yeah, and he's just generally irritable towards everyone and everything, except for Cold Snap. Cold Snap is one of his friends. Cold Snap has temperature manipulation, so he's kind of like I can't think
Iceman?
of the Iceman. There we go. I was thinking Mr. Freeze, but I was like, no, wrong.
That's the
wrong
Batman
IP.
universe.
That's Batman.
Yeah, but Cold Snap's actually a genuinely nice guy, but he's just kind of naive. And he was actually cast in season 3. He was the one that was at Herogasm.
Really? The one that was making ice for everybody's drinks?
That's the one.
Oh, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Got to stay hydrated.
So Nubia, she is basically Storm. She's got the electric, the lightning and all that thunder powers, and she appears in Diabolical in one episode. The same episode that Groundhawk was in, except in this, I guess in the showverse, she is like a Vought character, and they had this long feud, in quotation marks, because it's all faked for the cameras.
It's like wrestling. You
right,
have
it's
these
basically that.
Kayfabe? Is that what it's called? I think it's called Kayfabe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Silver Kincaid is she's kind of a mix between Jean Grey, Emma Frost, and Silver Sable. She's kind of all wrapped up into one.
Well, that sounds dope.
Yeah, she actually appears in season 3 of the Boys on the American Hero. Like it's like this reality show where they're trying to pick the next member of the 7.
Yeah.
But she was actually the one in the hijab. I guess they made her Muslim in the show.
Oh.
And, Homelander obviously didn't like that. He wasn't about that. He wanted to pick that, American Hero. I forget what his name was. He was another speedster, kind of like A-Train. Supersonic, yeah. Many fans kind of speculated for a while that Cindy from season 2, I think she was one of the ones in the psych ward, was Silver Kincaid, but it turned out to not be true. Stacker is another one. He seems to be made out of a shiny, dark colored metal.
Colossus?
Yeah, Colossus. I'm getting all the names mixed up right now. But he's like very reserved and doesn't say anything. He's like one of those characters that's just like always in the background, like shut his mouth.
Yeah. Which is a lot of times a better decision. Getting involved with it.
Deadpool would fit in a lot better with these guys, I'd say, than he would with the X-Men.
Oh yeah,
because at least he's not going to have some giant metal guy, walking around making sure he's not making mistake, Mr. Deadpool.
Well, and not only that, I mean, he would probably even become even worse of a person, like being around all these bad influences, just bringing each other down and having no one to hold you accountable to anything. Europo is a parody of Nightcrawler, who's my favorite X-Man.
Oh yeah, it's
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
But he's purple. He's got purple skin or like red skin, and he kind of looks demonic, much like Nightcrawler does. But he's like super goofy, teleportation and enhanced strength. Nightcrawler. He's Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
Except
Good Wagner.
he's a G-Man, not
This-
an X-Man.
This is all unabashedly an
Oh,
X-Men
yeah.
riff-off. Like,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and as just as much as the Seven is of the Justice League, like
Right.
they are not hiding the fact at all that when
No.
they made this, they said we took the picture of Superman and of all the X-Men and we just photoshopped it a little different. Like, and here you go. There's the character
How do we avoid copyright?
Well, hell,
by making them all assholes.
and by
Right.
and by taking copies of literally every superhero that's available from every IP and making it fair frickin' game. I mean, you've got Homelander being Superman. You've got Wonder Woman. You've got your
Maeve.
basic
Yeah, Queen Maeve.
You've got basically your superheroes from that, but then you've got other ones like The Boys, where you've got the Punisher. That is
Yeah.
totally Billy Butcher.
I didn't even think about that.
He is the Punisher made over into his own perspective reasoning.
Right.
And it's very cool that they take all these different characters. I mean, they have like spider versions in the wasn't there like a spider kid, something like that in Diabolical as well? Or
I don't remember.
oh gosh, I might be thinking of
I
Invincible.
think so. I think they were all black. It could be Invincible and Diabolical are very similar because the art styles are very similar.
So
Yeah.
close and a lot.
And the gruesomeness of it is very similar too, with the Diabolical thing from The Boys.
Right.
But
My favorite is Discharge. He is capable of firing acidic vomit from his mouth
yeah,
and is incredibly fond of peeing on all the other members of the group.
all right then.
And they all just find it funny. They all just think it's hilarious.
is that like Toad from X-Men series? Didn't he have acid spit?
Yeah.
and don't frogs like piss on you when you hold
Yep.
it?
Yeah, you
Sounds
might be
like,
right.
Sounds like my nightmare here.
I could see them all standing in a room. They just got through with a big conversation, and he starts peeing on them, and they have like this, oh, discharge.
But he actually appeared in season 2, and Kimiko actually kills him with his own vomit in the psych ward.
Oh, dang. So this isn't a sequel to
The Boys.
The Boys.
No, it's like a
happening
spin-off.
It's happening kind of within that universe, but the
Right.
timeline's different. Like
Yeah, and I imagine much like The Boys, they kind of just take the idea and run their own kind of story with it. I mean, because it's an adaptation of a show that everyone loves, but that is somehow just completely not true to the source material.
Yeah.
At least in it's not like word for word, page by page. It's much different than the source material, but they draw from the source material to make their own scenarios, their own things. So I'm imagining they're going to take some of these characters, maybe put new spins on them, create their own new characters, because some of them have already appeared in the show itself. So.
Right. And the thing that makes me the craziest about the show is how well they do at showing that like the superheroes are not the worst evil. The worst evil are the ones who will allow these superheroes to get away with the stuff that they're doing and blindly follow them and accept that they are right no matter what.
Yeah. And I'd like to see him spoof more supervillains. Like I want to see Homelander go up against an actual I guess Homelander is a supervillain himself.
for sure.
But, they kind of mention it in season 2 when that one some guy in the Middle East was like able to blow himself up or something.
Yeah.
And they were like scaring everybody with this idea of the supervillain. But I don't know. I'd like to see them kind of explore that.
you want a
little bit more.
galactic entity to show up and be the real
That would be cool.
horror.
That would be
Yeah,
cool.
That would be neat.
Yeah, and they'd have to make him something super racist too, like Doom Jew or something like that.
Yeah, more than likely.
Because I don't know.
Doom Jew.
Doom Jew.
If I could name the episode that, I would, but I can't. Damn it.
The only thing that can stop Junvu. Wow.
See, we have to censor
Doom
it
Jew
as we
is
do
the
it.
Juverine.
Juverine. That sounds like a
Jubilee.
Juverine. It sounds like a very painful, like I don't know,
Got a big like menorah tattooed on his chest.
IUD or something.
Two I'd root for.
So moving on to a different era, we're not talking about sci-fi here. There's really not a good transition into this.
Can we still shard ourselves though?
If you would like,
please.
but
Okay,
just wait till the latter half of the topic to do so.
Okay.
In fact, I would take that as a compliment. I'm talking about Southern Gothic horror.
Ye
Marcus,
Haunted?
are you listening?
I'm listening, but I have
Are
no
you?
idea what this
Okay.
is.
Is this Ye Haunted?
Ish. So I've been in this weird thing looking at occult stuff. And so it leads me into this. One of my favorite podcasts is called Old Gods of Appalachia. And so I've been binge listening to them, and they are in this genre. The narrator is Steve Shell. His voice and his cadence are just magical when he's narrating these stories. It's a horror anthology series mixed with some Eldritch abomination. Marcus,
Nice.
Paying attention? Okay.
I love it.
So Southern Gothic fiction, it's a subgenre of fiction, much like, anything else has subgenres. It mixes elements of the American South. Commonly, it takes place during Depression era, post-Civil War, that kind of thing. But it's not necessarily limited to that. And mixed in with that is storytelling of deeply flawed, disturbing, eccentric characters mixed with some kind of like hoodoo magic, derelict settings, and grotesque situations.
Granny magic?
Yeah, Granny
Granny
magic is all throughout
That's awesome.
these stories. And a lot of the different arcs, because they're just finishing their third season, follows the Walker sisters and just their line throughout the generations. And it's captivating in a way that you wouldn't necessarily see in other places.
I wonder if the Winchester Mystery House could be revolving kind of in this same vein, just because of the time period that, the Winchester, repeating rifle and everything was brought into existence. And then she felt she was cursed by all the dead people from it. And she decided that she would continuously build onto her mansion after her husband passed away due to fear of the spirits coming after her that the rifle had taken their lives.
Yeah, except that's a true story.
I
and
know.
a woman's beliefs. But yeah, if that was a fictitious story, it could definitely fall into that genre.
I mean, I don't know exactly if it's real that she believed that or what, but I think that makes a great story for
it
it.
is definitely a plausible situation to the house that exists.
Do they write the stories that they
Yes.
read? Okay, so
Yeah.
this is all fiction they've created.
There is a group of writers. Steve Shell does write some of it.
Okay.
And some people appear in the show to do voices for certain characters.
Oh, cool.
He does most of them, but it's highlighted with other people's guest appearances.
That's cool.
And it's done very well. Some of the situations can be uncomfortable due to the time period,
Right.
being the 20s and 30s and post-Civil War. So you can imagine some of the themes, but there's no words in it that you don't want to play around other people,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's very tastefully done to display the horrific period in time.
Right.
And after, like I said, binging through this, I wrote a little example that I would like to read to y'all.
Of your own?
Of my
So
own.
we got Austin's fan fiction for Tenacious D, and now we get your Southern horror
Yes.
fiction.
Gothic
Yes.
horror.
Man,
It's
Marcus,
the story.
I feel
go
bad
ahead.
that we didn't.
I know, I'm
bring
gonna have to
it,
write
man.
something
Yeah, I didn't
now.
write
All right.
anything. Damn.
I'm not sure if this story is completed yet or not. I may finish it and come back at a later date and add more to it, but here's what I've got so far. In this postmodern day of woe and want, we are compelled, nay forced, to go out and break our bodies just to merely scrape by. Gone are the days of plenty. They have evaporated like morning dew in the rising sun. We find ourselves in God's country, consumed by the imperial leaders of industrialization, sweating ourselves away, toiling in the heat and the misery, working for those who we know don't give a damn about us. We are merely a cog in the great machine grinding ever onward. They know they are our betters, and so do we. However, the culmination of the sweat of our brows and the brokenness of our backs in and of itself is its own kind of reward. Factories dot the hills and mountains all over God's country, and it truly is God's country. The residents of the sleepy little town of Hogwash are prone to abide in less than decadent accommodations of the modular home. Perched up on cinder blocks, they rest, never to be moved until the day of the Lord's reckoning. Let us take a look at the residents of one such domicile, way out on the county road. A road that seems to wind through the pines and cedars with nary a purpose in mind. Living in double-wide splendor is the Watson family. RV, his wife Grace, and their precious daughter Lily. The patriarch of the Watson family, RV, sits alone on the front porch basking in the last rays of a dying sun. By his rocking chair to his right, as always, lies his faithful hound, recumbent on the well-worn wooden planks of the porch, his tail wagging back and forth and in and out of the small space beneath the rockers of the chair. On his left, a crumpled dolly lays sodden in a puddle of some brackish dark substance. Across Mr. Watson's bony arthritic knees lies an almost ancient-looking axe, its head once gleaming, now covered with the corruption of age and hard use. Upon its razor-like face is a film of a curious maroon ichor. One singular spot of metal shines amongst the brown, indicating a fresh nick in its otherwise perfect shape. The handle is splintered on the verge of breaking, but still it perseveres to do its day's work. As evening settles in and makes itself comfortable, a hush falls over the day and the lightning bugs come out to shine their meager light. The man rouses from his meditative slumber. The dog and the man look at one another and a broad smile breaks across the man's face. "We did good today, boy. We did good," he says as he hefts his tool across his shoulder and makes his way inside the peculiarly quiet house. As the door swings shut, a brief scent of iron and decay wafts out into the cool night air. The hound, dutiful as ever, lies by the front door, ever vigilant and wary of unwanted visitors intruding into his master's peace. A small soft whine escapes his throat as the good boy looks out into the yard, dreaming his sleepy dreams of chasing a ball or perhaps an errant squirrel with Lily in tow, her curly hair flashing in the sun. As we make our way inside this once joyful home, the smell that was hinted to us on the porch assails our nostrils, the smells of rancid meat and liquefaction. Upon the floors, scrawled in an unsteady hand, are arcane sigils of a bygone era. A hand that was shaking in either despair or revelry, one can never truly know just by looking. Lying inside of one such sigil is a profane display of the bodies of the other two inhabitants of this abattoir of pain and despair. Their bodies shredded to their skin and clothing in a worship of some vile entity. As RV stands over his once beloved family, his body begins to shake and spasm and contort in the most macabre of fashions, symbols bursting and bubbling to the surface of his sun-baked skin. As we watch his body writhe and twist, it begins to grow taller and thinner, almost hollow. The skin on his temples crack and split, and a set of deer-like antlers erupt from the gleaming surface of his now bared skull. They grow taller and twist until he must stoop to remain upright inside the now small-appearing room. His eyes begin to glow a red-hot light as he drops to his haunches and begins to pick up the half-rotten remains of his two once beautiful ladies. The chunks dripping and falling into sticky gobbets are ever more rapidly being shoved into the creature's gaping maw. His pointed and splintered teeth grinding the flesh and bones into a suitable condition to flow down his hungry throat.
I'm scared.
You made your own Southern Gothic Wendigo tale, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah,
So
because
he
that reminded me of the Wendigo.
So he fed his family to an eldritch abomination.
That was himself.
Became
He
the
became
Eldritch
it, yeah.
Abomination.
So
He
it abducted him.
I mean,
Or
that
he's-
part of the story's not yet been written.
It may not even have to. That may just be the mystery behind this
Yeah.
thing. That's cool.
Well, in the case of the Wendigo, I mean, the Wendigo spirit takes over you, but the second that you consume the flesh of human, that's when they actually have full control.
Yeah. It's like an ever-present hunger.
Yeah, and you can deny it, but once you supply it.
Now, is the Wendigo like a Appalachian kind of?
It's a
Tale?
Native American
Okay.
myth or legend.
So from around these parts,
from
kind of.
from the Appalachian area.
I've always thought it was just cool, like to take the place where we're from like that area of the country and just make it into kind of this fantasy world.
Yeah.
Because then we've got legends aplenty, just like any part of the world. Why not take them and make them into something? And I guess now I know
Exactly.
that it exists.
And most of our horror in this kind of section of the world comes from people with other people's faces on them with chainsaws, because that's in the South, it's in Texas. And then you've got places that are more towards our area that involve a lot of inbred and screwed up genetics that cause you to get chopped up and eaten. So that's our horror. It's like, oh, look what they're doing back in the backwoods. Ding, 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 ding.
Also, when we say the word horror, is really some people in other parts of the world might think we're saying something else.
Whore?
Yeah,
Horror.
horror. My 8th grade teacher used to make us say horror. That's how you say it. If you don't say it that way, some people are going to think you're calling them a name.
Horror? That's really how it's said?
Horror.
See, that sounds southern
Yeah,
to
I'm
me.
not
Like
saying
horror sounds right, but it's
Yeah.
not. It's horror.
I don't know. I'm just saying some people in some
Yeah.
parts of the world are going to think we're saying
Oh, that's
something else.
wild.
Yeah.
The puppy dog was okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank goodness, because I knew you wouldn't.
He was
harm
sad.
the
Don't
dog.
kill the dog.
I knew you wouldn't harm the dog
was sad.
because the dog itself is also a beast.
Well,
in this thing.
the dog is hurt because the child that he loved to run and play with is not there
but
anymore.
his master is still his master, just in different form.
Exactly. So take from that what you will. Make up your own head canon if you like.
Yeah.
We're some creative boys.
Yeah. And if you are
They
a fan
are.
of purple prose like I am, which basically taking 15 words to describe something where 3 words will work.
I thought purple prose was just lots of curse words just for the sake of curse words.
No, that's blue.
Googling it up.
That's blue
Google
prose.
it. I don't know, but
I'm Googling
blue
it.
humor, curse words.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I've never heard of those terms used before.
Yeah.
So,
I think that it's something to further inspire your tale. If you want to watch the movie Antlers.
is that what I saw you watching one day?
Yes.
Yeah, because that's what I saw in my head whenever you were describing this thing.
It
In
never
a different light, though.
Yeah.
Of course.
You go through 3/4 of the movie not knowing what it is until you run upon somebody that does know what it is, and that's kind of the way that horror movies work. A lot of times, is you don't get any kind of details until some carnage has been unleashed. So watch the movie Antlers, and I think you'll get a kick out of it.
And I think just by your reading, like, I think I understand why you enjoy that other show so much too, is because you're from the area they're describing. So like, we can see these moments on this porch, like with the axe in the wood and the woods and everything. Like, we see that winding road in the middle of nowhere.
Double wide glory.
Yeah.
And on the cinder blocks. I mean, all that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived in double wide splendor growing up.
Right.
I mean,
Like, it's things we see every day.
Plus,
but
you
it's-
had some good alliteration right there
Yeah.
with the well-worn wooden
I had to
porch.
go a little slow through that because I'm like, oh, that's going to
that's
trip me
good.
up because I practiced reading before I left the house,
No.
and I'm like,
It's great.
One of the nicest houses I ever went to growing up was my aunt's double wide trailer, because she had the nicest, like, triple sized jet bathtub that has ever
baby.
that
one of
ever
them garden tubs.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
boy.
I remember I used to go to her house, and I'm like, I want to take a bath.
Well, single wide's not going to hold that sucker. You
No,
gotta get
it
double.
would not.
And you were correct about purple prose. I was wrong.
Thank you.
Boom, blasted,
Roasted.
great gaped. I don't know what.
Well, I mean, and the Wendigo is one of my favorite legends to kind of delve into. I've seen a couple of different versions. Most of them are the ever-present hunger, the eating of human flesh. But I've also seen the Wendigo portrayed as like the guardian of lost places. So, like children lost in the woods, guiding them to safety. I've seen that, but that's not the most prevalent. So it can kind of go a couple different ways.
I like to consider us the horrors that are guiding all of our listeners to safety within the realm of nerdism. So thank you all for letting us guide you in this episode of Nerd Through the Grapevine on iTunes and Spotify and Good Pods and CastBox and whatever you're listening to us on. It doesn't matter. You're listening. If there are 5 stars optionable to click, do it. Click the 5 stars. Put a description on why you love us. Click 5 stars. Put a description on why you hate us. I don't care. It's the 5 stars that matter. Plus, people get a kick out of seeing why somebody hated us and also rated us great. And there's a link in the description for Teespring to go get stuff with our logo and stuff on it. And there's even one with their names on it that's kind of neat and trendy. But there's a fanny pack too. If you get that fanny pack, you can put all kinds of goodies in there.
And if you want to have a copy of the new Tenacious D movie that was written by me, Austin Shazam Pfeiffer, or the Gothic horror that Tiny has provided us with today, you can
Southern Gothic horror.
Yes.
you can find that by getting onto our websites at Twitter and the Facebook and the Instagram. You'll find us at Nerd Grapevine. You can send us a message there. You can talk to us there. We'll be able to conversate or send you links to where you can have the full work to read for yourself. And also, if you wanted to get on Patreon, donate a little bit to the cause, you'll receive a shiny holographic sticker with the Nerd Through the Grapevine logo and our eternal praise, and access to future materials that you're not going to be receiving live on air like this.
Get it out. Get it out of you. All of it. There's more.
And you can find that Patreon at Nerd Grapevine as well. And make sure that when you're listening to this kind of stuff, that you're not just blasting it out for everybody to hear, because it's a little confusing sometimes. They might hear some stuff like that this dude just killed his family with an axe. That's going to cause them to have a little bit of...
I've been sitting here this whole time trying to figure out why my hand smells funny, and that's not a joke. I'm sitting here going, is it the garlic cheese biscuit thing that I ate, or it was the rubber dog toy from when I was playing with Millie? And I think it's a combination of both. My hand smells so bad, I can't wait to wash it. But find us on Discord. There's a link in the description. There's a meme channel. There's, you can see what we've made our own Fanon and Grapevine Canon and whatever else you want to call it. We're on there live, uncut, uncensored, and irrevocably circumcised.
And in perfect, poignant purple prose, the universe bestows to you in your delicate phalanges.
Flanges?
A tiny little grape. Dane, what shall you do with it?
I must feed it to my southern Wendigo. Like I must give it to them, for my safety depends on it. And I feel as though if I were to offer this tiny, pure, perfect grape, they would accept it, and maybe my life be spared as their puppy, or might me become their pup. Would I become the puppy at that point?
I just sharded.
And I'm like, oh no, I'm so sorry.
God.
I'm so sorry.
Don't touch it with your hand.
No.
Then your hand will stink
Tiny,
too.
don't touch it too.
Your hand will stink too.